See ya.
That fucking car rules. What's up, man? Asshole! Hey, partner. Good to see you again. This place is cool. Thanks for the hookup. Eyes on main entrance.
They all judge, but they ain't no better.
I'm so into this paleo diet.
Gosh, that's what the signs say.
Hello, Chuck. be to come. Jason Carroll, please stand by. I want to go back to you just a moment, but I want to bring in former Minneapolis Police Chief Madera Arredondo. He was the chief when George Floyd was killed by a former officer 5 years ago. Chief, what is your assessment right now of how the LAPD is handling all that's in front of them?
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight, Laura. Well, first off, I want to commend Chief McDonald of the LAPD. He's responsible, Laura, ultimately for the safety and security of the 4 million Los Angelinians. And so that's critical for him right now. That's his number one priority. Obviously, there's different dynamics going on right now, whether it's the protests taking place outside of the federal jail there. Certainly, they had the issues in downtown. They've declared a unlawful assembly, as well as some of the incidents that were occurring on the freeway overpasses.
And by the way, Chief,
he's got
excuse me, what would that mean if as a chief, if you declared an area an unlawful assembly place, what protocols would that trigger?
It's going to, Laura, it's going to trigger, first of all, the chief, and through his intelligence and through obviously what he's seeing on the ground, it's unsafe. It's unsafe for business workers down there. It's unsafe for normal residents of that area, as well as for the peaceful protesters themselves. There's a dynamic of violence and criminal activity that has sprung up where he has to declare that it's safer for people to leave that area, and they must leave that area. So Chief McDonald and his teams are dealing with these different multiple dynamics. Again, his priority is going to not only be to keep those areas safe, but also now with the obviously with the addition of National Guard, those citizen soldiers and airmen, and now with the possibility of military soldiers coming in, logistics, communication. They've already been under mutual aid. Chief McDonald's had to make sure that as much as he can, everyone's on the same page as far as the county assistance, the other local state assistance, and now the federal assistance. It is a massive undertaking, Laura, and as we get into the fourth night here, obviously there's a concern as night falls, but also you don't want these things to have these protracted engagements over a period of time. Chief McDonald's has already called for a tactical alert, meaning the Los Angeles Police Department members that you see on your screen. Many of those have been working for many, many hours, probably double shifts. They've got to work in logistics to make sure that they have enough personnel to relieve those folks and then bring in fresh personnel as well. So, again, Chief McDonald is also behind the scenes, I can guarantee you. He's having communication. He's reaching out to faith leaders. He's reaching out to union organizers. He's reaching out to those peaceful protest leaders to try to also get them to help with keeping Los Angeles safe and secure over the next several days here.
I mean, undoubtedly, some of the lessons that you learned from the George Floyd protest that happened in really both of our hometowns in Minnesota, I do wonder, when you look at that period of time and thinking about the troops that came in there, I remember seeing tanks in the street at different areas of places I usually had walked as even as a child. Tell me about some of those lessons learned and the idea of how you would then calm a situation knowing that the National Guard might be present. Obviously, it's going to perhaps be triggering, or invigorating, as my friend and colleague Jason Carroll noted, for those who do not have the best of intentions.
Well, and that's a great point, Laura, that you mentioned. When we saw some of the National Guard equipment rolling through our streets of Minneapolis, yes, there were many community members who that was very traumatizing, very triggering. It put the onus on me and my leadership team, and folks out there in the field, to communicate regularly with community members to explain the reason why. I have to commend our National Guard leadership at the time. They also set aside liaison teams within the National Guard to assist Minneapolis police at that time to communicate.
And was that productive, Chief, at the time? Was that a productive?
It was very productive. I think what the community saw from that, Laura, was that this was not a standalone sort of operations, that both the local police department, our National Guard, were working together, and the ultimate goal was to keep our city and our communities safe. But to your point, yes, it can be very triggering for communities, but I have no doubt that Chief McDonald of the LAPD. Him and his teams are working to over-communicate. You can never communicate enough when you have such dynamic and fluid situations going on in your city.
You wonder also on the flip side of that, if people perceived the local law enforcement in cahoots with National Guard, does that make them less trusting of the law enforcement to handle a quell situation? It's a question you have to ask the protesters out there tonight. Let me ask you though, because LA's mayor, Karen Bass, says that her city is being, her words, used for an experiment on what the federal government could do. What were your interactions with the federal officials, not just National Guard, but the federal officials? What was that like during the George Floyd protest?
You know, I was very fortunate. I had a very good relationship with our federal partners before May 25th, 2020, and building those relationships in the quiet moments really helped me and our MPD during that time. So again, that was critical to build those relationships before that. No doubt, again, I believe that Chief McDonald is really doing a lot of communication with his local, state, and federal partners. You know, Laura, the folks that have the advantage on the ground in terms of the public safety apparatus are the LAPD. It's their sergeants and their lieutenants and their supervisors. They know the district, they know the neighborhoods, they know the people. They will also know those who are out there peacefully protesting, and they will also know, as Jason Carroll mentioned in his report, when the sun goes down and those peaceful protesters leave, those community members are also going to know who's out there who are bad actors, who are actually causing more harm to the community than good. And so LAPD and Chief McDonald's teams are going to have that advantage that quite frankly, our citizen soldiers and airmen who might not be familiar with LA, they're not going to know that, as well as the other troops coming in.
Well, the sun is just starting to set in LA. It's already set in Dallas, where we have live footage right now of additional protests happening. You have a line of police vehicles. There are flags on the other side of the crosswalk, and you have a group of people that have gathered together right opposite of law enforcement right now. You have, it appears to be just regular cars that are stopped on the road beside it as well. Describe for me, Chief, what the toll protests in an area could actually take on the law enforcement community, especially if, as you can undoubtedly imagine, different cities are probably communicating about what's happening in their own places.
Yeah, Laura, I guarantee you that chiefs around the country, they're communicating, they're certainly watching your program, and they're relying upon each other. Obviously, we're in the time of social media. Protest groups, they can be in Los Angeles and can be communicating to their counterparts in Dallas or Minneapolis or other parts of the country. So the toll that it also takes is it can strain the resources and the personnel of municipal police departments. People have to remember, LA's got 4 million people there. The crime didn't stop tonight. It's the fourth night of this engagement, and so they still have to respond to these calls. What that does is it may mean that some of those priority calls that they have, it's going to take longer for those officers to get there. And the police department, they want to go out there, they want to protect and serve, but when these situations happen, it can absolutely tax the resources of a police department. And so they're trying to do their best to resolve these. Again, respect First Amendment rights for those peaceful protesters, but individuals will oftentimes, and we saw it in Minneapolis, there will be a certain group of individuals that will hijack a cause, and it's about destruction and criminality, and that cannot happen. And so the chiefs of these cities, Chief McDonald, certainly in Los Angeles, and he's made it loud and clear publicly, he will not tolerate it. And that's to keep everyone safe, not only the residents of Los Angeles, but the men and women in uniform as well.
Chief Vidya, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time. I want to bring in U.S. Army retired Major General Randy Maynard, who was formerly the acting vice chair of the National Guard Bureau, and Scott Schuchart, a former senior ICE official in the Biden administration. Thank you for both of you for coming. Say, General, you called Trump's decision to have the National Guard involved inappropriate. Why?
First of all, the law enforcement is the first way that you go. They're trained, they're on the ground. The chief, as we've already commented on, they They know the community. They know how to do this. The Guard, when there is the necessity to do it, then the city would then ask, local authority would ask the governor for assistance. And it escalates in that manner. What has happened in this particular case is the president has unilaterally said, I'm going to federalize the National Guard for 2,000 members, now 2,000 more, and I'm going to bypass the governor's wishes.
And what does federalizing mean? Do they have the same authority as law enforcement or more limited powers?
No, they actually have more limited powers, except for the fact that the president is now having his desire of having uniformed people on the street, soldiers, armed in this situation. And that is escalation, not a de-escalation of the situation.
Love this.
For what he is trying to maintain the safety and order for his citizens.
But there is from my earnings.
You
gotta speculate.
They might be
Too
wondering, is there a
accumulated.
line
We've done the
when
speculation.
National Guard ought to be
Soon,
called
the
for local law enforcement
very soon,
is
all right?
overwhelmed
Let's get
either
the
by
hell
the
out of
number
here,
of people
all right?
who are
Got
out
the buyer
or
coming
the
through. Thank you.
reinforcement function
Thank you all
of
very
the
much.
National
Hey,
Guard.
be
Because
cool
that's
with that
part
money.
of what
Only
limited
buy
powers
superficial
include, right?
crap
They have
and
a
superficial
reinforcing
people.
effect, not a unilateral law enforcement cop effect.
That is exactly correct. And as you already mentioned,
You can't be
the
impotent
law
rage,
enforcement
because
agencies
I'm
as well
impotent
as the National
rage.
Guard, they work together all the time. It's not, you don't have time in crisis to develop relationships.
Right.
So the state and the local community leaders and the law enforcement, they have these relationships ongoing. So they know when
it's
to
Phil.
ask for help.
Good to meet you finally.
When will they try to meet?
Ain't it?
And that's why you have local community and then
We're
regional
gonna do
and
this,
state.
or we're gonna have a circle jerk?
Right now, that is bypass.
Whatever you want.
You know, I want to ask you, Scott, about
Got
this
the drugs?
because there is this
Yeah, if you came for
mentioned
what you
learning
ordered.
curve in a crisis.
Yeah, I have.
It's going to be pretty
Good.
steep, and it can't be the kind of
Can I
luxury
see?
being able to do so.
Can I
Governor Gavin
see
Newsom has
the
not
money?
requested the National Guard to be there.
Yeah.
This is the first time in over 6 decades now the president has put in the National Guard without the request of the governor. Last time in L.A.
All
was
right.
George H.W. Bush during the Rodney King riot. He had requested,
Trevor.
with Pete
There is the
Wilson,
money.
the then governor of California,
Hand me the cocaine
requested
first.
at that point to be there.
What?
Talk to me now
The
about
cocaine
decision of Governor
you
Gavin
are
Newsom
selling me.
to the
Excuse
administration.
me?
Prove it or no?
It seems like
Are you
it is
selling me
necessary
cocaine,
to
Mr. Phillips?
protect the state's sovereignty.
Why do you keep
He is the
saying
commander in chief of that National Guard, and more to the point,
And
he
how
has
is
people
it
who are responsible
that you know
for
my
public
name?
safety.
We're watching right now as you're speaking the police line moving closer to the parents of civilians on the streets right
You are
now
under arrest
in
for
Dallas.
trespassing.
There's horns blowing. Turn closer to our overhead view. You see the people who are scattered around. There's a flag being flown. I believe that the flag being thrown here on the left side of the screen as well. The police force is moving closer to this group of people at this hour in Dallas. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that he's asserting the state's sovereign role in keeping its people safe. But lawsuits have become the way that parts of our government speak to each other now. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but it's the way we operate.
When you look at the trajectory of that litigation, though, obviously the priority right now is going to be to quell the unrest on the streets of today. But how does this play out in court? What are the next steps? Who is overseeing this?
Well, it's in the Northern District of California. It'll go to a judge in the San Francisco District. Last I checked, it hadn't been assigned to a judge yet, and the state hadn't asked for any emergency relief.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know that they do anything that there's anything done right now, and I think I don't want to characterize it as a political document. It's not a political lawsuit, but it's a lawsuit about explaining the different roles of the different parts of government. Is there really going to be a role for the judiciary in policing that, or is this part of a dialogue that we need to have between the state and the feds about who's going to do which piece of the law enforcement collaboration?
General, when you look at this and think about that collaboration, not just in terms of what's happening in the legal sphere, but when these two entities are working side by side, obviously the LAPD, I'm assuming, would take the more senior role here. Is that right?
That is correct. The National Guard is always in support. And that's very important to understand. The National Guard, when it's under the governor's control, is supporting the local sheriff, supporting the local police chief, and making things happen.
So how does that work in terms of the theory of too many chefs in the kitchen? What if they have different viewpoints of how to stop the protest?
That's where the dilemma is. When you bring in federal troops under NORTHCOM report to the president.
NORTHCOM is what?
Oh, it's Northern Command. In other words, these troops are not reporting to the government. They are reporting to the federal government. And when you don't have that local command and control in the same way, it could open the door for errors or mistakes, and it can be disconcerting.
I'm looking at apparently riot shields now having been raised in Dallas. You see that plastic that's being lifted in front of the face and body of the uniformed officers who are now in a line. They have on, looks to be some sort of a riot gear of kind with the helmets on, as well as their shields up. They're saying across people who have different signs. I'm not able to read what they say in the moment in time, but this is the police line. They are now moving towards the people. As you can see right now, a quickened pace. They are gathered together, staying in one horizontal line as they're going forward and forward. You have some people who do have weapons on them as the line appears to be wrapping around a park area, where you've got people who are with signs saying "End ICE," who are looking back at the crowd of officers who are now right next to a flag, and people who appear to be remaining on the streets, including a flag involving Free Palestine. This is now in Dallas this morning. It's evening. We're seeing it right now, Scott. I mean, obviously, what we're seeing is an escalation in terms of the approach of these officers towards civilians they would like to leave. This is no longer California. This is now Texas. Do you anticipate there being some sort of legal recourse there as well in terms of the governor acting?
It depends on what the governor decides to do, but what I see there are trained police doing trained police maneuvers. Those are not military maneuvers. Police have an entire range of escalation tactics. They have the tools for that. They're trained for that. And
they can as well, legally.
Well, yeah, consistent with the Constitution, right? They're bound by due process. The crowds are protected by the First Amendment, and police are trained about the right way to find the balance. And the courts can get involved if the balance isn't struck correctly. Our troops do a lot of valuable things, but this is not, I don't think, in the top 20 things that active duty military are trained to do. These are police activities.
Active duty military, I think about the Marines who might be deployed as well, and maybe doing so as we speak. These are military members, not necessarily in Dallas, but military members who are trained for overseas combat.
Combat operations.
This is not domestic. Now, describe why that distinction is so important in terms of the way this could play out.
I think if we go back in history to find out that story that's always told, that whenever the Marines were there supporting the local police and they said, "Cover me," and the Marines literally opened fire and destroyed the building. That's not, that word "cover me" does not mean the same thing for police as it does for the Marines. Cover me means suppress all possible fire in front of me. So the bottom line is we're going to find that active duty soldiers receive no training on working with Americans. It's not the same whatsoever about dealing in a combat situation.
What are the risks of having these Pentagon sending 700 Marines to LA now amid the unrest? I mean, obviously, if you had the National Guard takes orders from the federal government, obviously they have a commander-in-chief who might be not just the governor who is doing them.
Actually, the Marines and these activated National Guardsmen are going to be commanded by one commander that will report to the Northern Command military command process. The concern is that they may not be well connected. And young Marines, no offense, the average age of the Marines is much younger than a National Guardsman, and they're much more likely to follow exactly what they hear in terms of orders, on which they receive no training.
I see police now running right now. They appear to be running in an area. I do see some with some form of weapons. I'm not sure if these are lethal force weapons or those trying to quell an unrest in a non-lethal manner. They are heading towards an area. We have Jason Carroll. I want to go to Jason. Jason, what are you seeing? What's happening? Why are they running?
Yes.
Jason, talk to me.
Well, right now the officers are telling, so they're just saying, move, move. It seems like they're trying to disperse this crowd.
Are they effective right now? I see people were running at one point in time. I do hear some sounds in the background and screaming. Are people following their orders and commands?
Well, again, Laura, right now what we've been hearing is just the officers saying, in command, move, move. And what we've seen is, let me try to give you some perspective, get my cameraman to turn around. You can see the crowd has started to disperse. They are moving in the direction down the street, away from the officers. You know, earlier I'd mentioned that tipping point when, perhaps we get to just get to the point where officers have said, well, they just have had enough. And it seems like this is that point. They are trying at this point to disperse the crowd. The crowd had started to thin out much more than what we saw earlier this evening. And so perhaps the officers here on the ground said this might be their opportunity to finally disperse those who were left. And that's what we're seeing. They're moving in a uniform line down the street. Now they've just given the command to hold their position, to hold the line. But again, Laura,
hold the line.
Not many people who are now left. I'll have my photographer try to show those who are left. And you can see a sparse number of people here in the street at this point, compared to what we saw even just an hour ago, even probably just about 30 minutes ago, near the top of your show when we were talking. A lot less people who are out here, and officers continuing to move. Now, perhaps what we'll see in the next 20 minutes or so, they'll decide to move again in formation down another block to try to thin out even more of those who are left. Laura?
Jason Carroll, please stay there. Again, let's keep our eyes and ears open for us. General Randy Manor, Scott Shukart, thank you both so much. We have much more out of LA ahead. The protest escalating, the rivalry between President Trump and Governor Newsom to a whole new level. The president even suggesting that Newsom should be arrested. Newsom's latest response is next. This is going to be so tasty. I think you know what you're doing. I'm so excited.
Evil on Police, Searching for Spain, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
COPD isn't pretty. From the struggle to breathe, to getting stopped in your tracks. But with Trelegy, I can finally move forward. With 3 medicines and 1 inhaler, Trelegy keeps...
Bitch, I'm turned on. Please talk about that's not okay. Bitch, I'm turned on. Fuck.
Flare-ups. Once daily Trelegy also improves lung function, so I can breathe more freely all day.
Bitch, you trying to be inside that shit.
Replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Do not take Trelegy more than prescribed. Trelegy may increase your risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if worsening breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
Ask your doctor about once daily Trelegy for COPD, because breathing should be beautiful all day and night.
All right. So that's 1 pair of glasses.
Yep.
With prescription lenses. Plus anti-reflective lens coating.
Oh.
Scratch-resistant coating.
Did I choose?
UV protection. Award-winning customer service.
That's me.
That's also me. Free returns, free exchanges, and free frame adjustments for life.
And how much more is that?
Oh, it's all included at Warby Parker.
So my glasses
are still just $95.
Oh.
Surprise! I just get excited. What's going on?
People love how the new Homes.com helps them get quick answers about any property by connecting them to the actual...
Girl, we not doing this.
So, I'm done? Oh, no. We're still not sure everyone knows that we're the only site that always connects you to the listing agent rather than selling off your contact info. So we're going to keep you up there a little while longer. Okay, yeah, I'm getting great exposure. Speaking of
Oh, me, Cuba, me. I'm the king of me. Oh, me, Cuba, me. I'm the king of me.
We could have a hat.
Ooh, what about a beret?
Oh, bingo.
Homes.com. We've done your homework.
When Tractor Supply customers experience its personalized service made possible by T-Mobile for Business. With T-Mobile's reliable 5G business internet, employees get the information they need instantly. Tractor Supply goes further with T-Mobile for Business.
There's a reason Chevy is called the heartbeat of America. A heartbeat strong, steady, unwavering. Like the people who keep this country moving, doing what they do best. Helping neighbors, pitching in, getting it done. For them, only America's most dependable truck will do. In every Chevy truck, like every Chevy driver, dependability comes standard.
This is a place to worship the Father. But you make it a den of thieves! What is it?
The Chosen, Last Supper.
How many subscriptions do you have? Probably just Netflix and Spotify. All right, it's saying you have 13 subscriptions, which is costing you around $270 a month. What? You can cancel the ones you don't want right through the app, and it can even help you try and get a refund.
Let your feet take you wherever your spirit wants to go. The redesigned Hurricane helps you navigate any surface so it truly stands alone. Scan the code now or go to hurricane.com. How does a crowd get so comfortable and soft? It's like we designed it for us to be. Try them at home for 180 days. I don't know.
You're making a pass at the lost out near my place by the Alamo Sea. I've left some silage wrapped into my garage for you, so head here first.
There's a chance you're meeting as part of the team. Let's talk and provide more affordable and explore opportunities for kids like us. I'll try to play 6 a day at 10 minutes in
On the street of Los Angeles for the fourth night in a row. Law enforcement won't go pushing back protesters on the brotherhood until it is riot here. Here's Michael Yoshida is live on the scene in LA. Michael, describe what you're seeing right now.
This way, back up.
Can you see me? Can you hear me? We're waiting to get this second right now. We're watching right now. It appears to be law enforcement that's moving back to this area. Behind the line, you see them right now moving backwards. There's a crowd of people. I hear sirens in the background as well. There appears to be also now it's been Los Angeles is waiting to there's one big one is just going over there and going through it. Come back to the stand. Come back to your sound and the crowd in the area. Protests are erupting in several major cities today in support of California labor leader David Vidya. President of the California Senate is still used in Vidya. Vidya was released today on a $15 million bond. Is being charged with felony conspiracy to cancer. Looking out at the moment that's on Friday, you see him being pinned to the ground by fellow agents before being taken from the press. He wanted to be back down in front of the team. Vidya said that he was hospitalized after being injured in that arrest. Here's what Frederick said today.
Nothing will be resolved with violence. Why did you get violent? We need to be able to. Now, our movement used to be one of non-violence. Not only the animals movement. I imagine that they're going to put me on their example of the problem. I'm not prepared to take on that freedom. I'm prepared to make stuff.
April Barrett, president of the Service Employees International Union, April, welcome to his agency, the longest organization, and the least country.
David is glad to be known for his family. And he is more determined than ever to what he has always done, and that is stand up for immigrants and stand up for workers.
You know, he was injured, is anything injured?
No, I did get a chance to spend with after his release, but he's physically fine. We didn't talk about the details, but when I can talk a little bit other than
he has been a CARES Act for his marriage, where he built an immigrant integration program for very union members, and he was honored for during the crazy. Talk about what this issue of immigrants' rights really means to him.
David is a incredible champion for immigrants and immigrants' rights, but David is a champion whether that's our immigration status, our race, whether we speak, our gender, our age. He is a uniter and he is a fighter. And that is what you have seen him do for his entire career.
Will this arrest and apparently felony prospective charges, will that deter him in his mission?
I think that's up for David and his lawyers to speak to. But I know that SEIU, our union, is not backing down. We are going to continue to advocate not just for people like Berta, but for people like Rebecca Oscar and Llewellyn Dixon, our members who have been detained and released by ICE. We know their names. There are countless others whose names that we don't know. And so we're going to continue to stand up for them and stand up for the millions of people in our communities who are being impacted by these attacks on immigrants that is just tearing our communities apart.
April, there, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
We've got Michael Yoshida back with us. He's on the ground in Los Angeles, right outside of a line of law enforcement. Tell me what you're seeing.
Hey, Laura, good to be with you. Yeah, we're right on the other side of where you heard Jason earlier. We're with those LAPD, those law enforcement, as they're working to move these protesters further away from that facility. We'll step out of the way. You can see all of the law enforcement has now filled the street, again, working to push those protests we saw throughout the day away from that detention facility. We're probably about a half mile away at this point. Again, this is something we've been seeing, that forming these lines, giving those dispersal orders, and then slowly starting to push their way through. At times, we have seen those confrontations between some of the protesters as well as law enforcement. We've seen and heard those flashbangs, seen those rubber bullets fired into the crowds. At this point, you can see our shot right now that it is relatively calm at this point. They had just pushed what remains of this group further down away from that facility. It seems they're now in a holding pattern, as again, this is something we've seen play out over the last few hours here. Again, we're now into night 4 of the protests here in Los Angeles.
Can you tell me some of the interactions you've seen between law enforcement and the protesters as they try to disperse the crowd?
Yeah, really, it's been a changing mood, if you will, throughout the day. Early on, as we were outside that facility, we saw the protests going on. We would see some law enforcement vehicles make their way in, and that's where we saw little skirmishes at points, some people throwing bottles, some people trying to kick and hit those vehicles. But at the same time, we did see some others come up and try and tell them to knock it off, to push it away. Now, as we've moved into the later hours here, as we've seen some of the main group, it appears, that was here earlier dispersed, some of the interactions, as you can imagine, as you've probably seen from some of the video, have gotten a little bit more tense as, again, we're later into the day, later into the night. It's probably been a long day for those on both sides. We're seeing maybe some of the tension start to rise here. Again, you can see these officers here. It sounds like they're starting to shout some more orders here as they're trying to, again, looks like, prepare to further push this crowd further down the street. I'm sure you can probably see some of the lighting around here. We have law enforcement at pretty much every intersection here, so obviously a lot happening at this point. We're going to keep an eye on it as the night goes on.
I just saw law enforcement move closer to you just now. What are they saying to you? They move locations? They're expecting to have people move back for more?
Yeah, it's been a give and take throughout the evening. A lot of us trying to be right up there and see what's happening, report on what's happening, and getting pushed back. At this point, you can see we're right up against it. So at this point, we're kind of in a holding pattern. We're hoping to get further up at some point as the night goes on. But again, you can see the law enforcement, the APD officers here, their various states of tactical gear, the helmets, the batons, really just standing by. The protesters, what's left of them, just on the other side of this intersection. Not sure if you might be able to see some of the flags in the distance there as we're seeing more officers. Looks like walking up, starting to make their way into the intersection. Potentially preparing, obviously, to make their next move.
Michael Yoshida, thank you so much. Stand by for us, please, because still ahead tonight, President Trump and Governor Gavin Newsom swearing off as unrest spreads in Los Angeles. The political fight next.
I'm done.
Discover the power of
With Wegovy, I lost 35 pounds. And some lost over 46 pounds.
And I'm keeping the weight off.
I'm reducing my risk. Wegovy is the only weight management medicine proven to reduce risk of major cardiovascular events such as death, heart attack, or stroke in adults with known heart disease and obesity.
Don't take if you or your family had MTC, MEN2, or if allergic to it. Tell your provider if you plan to have surgery or a procedure, are breastfeeding, pregnant, or plan to be. Stop taking and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or any of these allergic reactions. Serious side effects may include pancreas inflammation and gallbladder or severe stomach. Yes. Call your prescriber if you have any of these symptoms. Wegovy may cause low blood sugar in people with diabetes, especially if you take medicines for it. Call your prescriber if you experience vision changes, heart racing at rest, or any mental changes. Depression or thoughts of suicide may occur. Side effects of nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea can lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
With Wegovy,
I'm losing weight.
I'm keeping it off.
I'm lowering my CV risk.
Ask your prescriber about Wegovy.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take one step, job begins, and each day starts. Was easy to see. I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. General yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area.
Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have
Okay, well done.
ulcers, or
Pick
infections.
this up for a living. We're making progress here. Like I said, nothing complex or dangerous, and that is exactly the way I want you to approach this next little task. We are going to borrow something off the Navy and EMP. They're not going to mind. Thing is kept on a plane is kept on a boat, the boat is kept in the ocean. All very simple, just borrowing something off the government, like a library. You are going to bring the plane here. We're going to unload the EMP, sell the plane to fund the rest of the operation, write out the late fees, easy. After that, you need to deliver the EMP here. We're going to borrow a helicopter from here, and we should be good. All right? Great. Good. Call me.
Find relief that can last. Ask your dermatologist about Consente. What causes a curve? Is it Peyronie's disease or somebody I can talk to or help?
Better run my money.
I got somebody for that. I got somebody for that. You guys got somebody for Peyronie's disease?
There's hope for the estimated 1 in 10 men who may have Peyronie's disease, or PD. A urology specialist who treats PD can help you create a plan, including non-surgical options. Find somebody today at gogetsomebody.com.
As an OBGYN, I've guided thousands of women through every stage of their motherhood journey. But I kept asking myself, why don't prenatal vitamins adjust to those changing needs? For years, I struggled to find a prenatal I could confidently recommend. That's why I co-founded Parallel, the first prenatal vitamin made by OBGYNs with targeted formulations for every stage of motherhood. Our formulas adapt to your journey, whether you're trying to conceive, pregnant, or postpartum. Parallel is made for every stage of you.
CNN This Morning with Audie Cornish. Weekdays at 6 a.m. on CNN.
Back with our breaking news, night 4 of protests in Los Angeles. CNN Jason Carroll is live on the ground in downtown LA with an update. Jason, what did you hear cops say just now?
Well, just a few moments ago, we heard an announcement over speakerphone, which basically said anyone here now is going to be under arrest for failure to disperse. And I don't know if you can make it out, Laura, but basically what the officers have done at this point is they've boxed in the few remaining protesters who are out here. There's some press mixed in that group as well there. I'd say there's probably about 2 dozen, I would estimate, protesters who are still left out here with us. Again, some press mixed in here as well. But on this side, as we come around, you can see there are a number of officers lined up on this side, they're on the far side, and they're on the side over here. So for all intents and purposes, they have boxed in the last few remaining protesters who are out here. And just before we came to air, just a few moments ago, we saw some of the protesters who are off in that direction outside of the boxed-in zone who continue to throw out some of those fireworks. And
Move!
Fireworks, remember, they were thrown at the officers. That's been somewhat of a trigger, which has forced them to tighten ranks and move in closer to the protesters to get them to disperse. And so we're now, again, waiting to see what the next move will be. But the last thing we just heard just a few moments ago is that everyone here now is going to be under arrest for failing to disperse. We are now waiting to see what the officers intend to do next. Right now, a lot of folks here are just waiting to sit here again with some members of the press to see what their next move will be.
Some sort of game of chicken. Are they going to try to call their bluff? Have they responded to that warning by officers?
Well, there's really nothing they can do at this point. They're not allowing any of these demonstrators to leave outside of this boxed-in zone. They're just sort of sitting here and now waiting. So anyone who now wants to leave cannot leave. Case in point, I've seen some of these demonstrators here and say, "Okay, I want out. I want to leave now." The officers are not allowing them to do that, at least not at this point. So again, the announcement went out. Everyone who is now here in this boxed-in area will be under arrest for failure to disperse, and that was met with some fireworks again being thrown at some of the officers and some of the demonstrators who are outside of this boxed-in zone.
Jason Carroll, really important reporting. Thank you. Keep us posted, please. Coming back to discuss the politics of all this, CNN political analyst and White House correspondent for the New York Times, Zolan Cano-Youngs, CNN political commentator and former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign, Karen Finney, and CNN political commentator and strategist for Michael Singleton. Well, first of all, the fact that they're being told they will be arrested if they don't leave, but now you cannot leave. I wonder about that particular warning, but tell me, what is the impact of the president's politics here? I mean, it seems as though this was an opportunity, and he has certainly used it.
Yeah, in many ways, this is a fight, a sort of showdown that's been a long time coming and that the president has wanted for some time now. Go back to 2020. President Trump actually wanted to deploy troops to Washington, D.C. When there were protests, Black Lives Matter protests.
And what happened? Why couldn't he?
He didn't because in many ways, one of the main differences between Trump 1 and Trump 2, there were people around him that talked him out of that option. Instead, he deployed an alphabet soup of federal agencies as well. In many ways, a deployment that also stoked tensions. This time around, though, you don't have those career officials. You don't have some of those people that are willing to honestly express dissent in most cases. You have many loyalists around the president that are focused on implementing his agenda. During the campaign, those around the president made clear that they believed in the executive branch and believed that the president would have authority to do many of the things that were seen today without regard for checks and balances that are foundational to government. But going back to the point you said before about the police there as well, and not letting people out, it seems based off that reporting. You know, this is something that's been a concern going back to 2020 now here as well, where when you deploy federal agents, when you deploy troops, are you actually deterring some of the crime that the president has alleged prior to the killing, or are you still paying attention and actually exacerbating the issues at hand here? And elongating these protests?
But in this instance, politically, and particularly looking at these images from Jaime, who live in LA, I mean, this is a very small area. It's maybe 30 people. Looks like the majority police and media. And I think Americans may look at that and say, wait, why are we sending them in? Why are we sending the National Guard in? And when it reminds you that this is an administration, this is about chaos. This is an administration that has said, as you said, the president has wanted to do this for a long time. But it has felt as though he's been waiting for the moment to almost create the fire. I mean, he basically escalated this situation. LAPD, they're tough, let me tell you. And clearly, they have the matter under control. And at one point, earlier today, there were some concerns the LAPD had of thinking, what if you have police officers caught between the National Guard and the Marines? And you're still trying to also keep some people safe who are trying to be there with their First Amendment rights peacefully protesting. One of the challenges the president will have on this is at the end of this week, we're going to see this military parade here in Washington. These hundreds, supposedly, of tanks and what have you. I don't think Americans are going to feel comforted by that. I think what they're seeing here, and we've seen in communities across the country, where people are saying, wait a second, I thought you were going to go after the violent criminals. Instead, you're going after the waitress in my local diner, a young man in Massachusetts who is a junior in high school, a whole community rally to get him out. A 4-year-old girl who's in this country in Northern California to have life-saving surgery. She was permitted to come here. They're trying to deport her. So my point is, the facts on the ground are not magical. We told people who were going to do, and we had a CBS News poll over the weekend that showed many Americans may agree with the goal. They disagree. But the third poll we've seen around this, they don't like the way he's doing it. Well, is this tactic likely to backfire for those who agree with this policy? Because we did see cars burning on the streets. We did see people who, whether they were part of a righteous protest or had ill will to other people who were hijacking the protest instead, we are seeing that there was a need for law enforcement. Is that part of the calculation?
What's going to happen? Clearly, that visual benefits.
I think we're seeing one person people who are right now with zip ties have obviously been arrested. The officers carrying around zip ties. We're seeing more than one person, a woman who's standing by a van, another person who's been let off and escorted. There does not appear to be the resisting of these arrests or zip ties. They do have them out there. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so the burning cars, visually, that benefits the president. I don't think many Americans like those optics for the most part. That aside, here's the point. The poll does show basically most Americans agree we have to address the immigration problem, tactics, question. I would probably do this a little bit more, if I'm being honest with you. Looking at California, I would say that California, we have to reckon with the government of your failed policy. Gavin Newsom just announced in March that California has a $12 billion deficit, in part because of an increase in spending on social services, in part because of the influx of illegal immigrants. We've seen the strain on classrooms. We've seen the strain on police forces being stretched too far. Again, this is all because of the policies of the state of California. 1.4 million citizens of California have moved to other states, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, Republican states, I might add. And so I think there is an opportunity for Republicans, particularly with midterms coming up, to make the case, particularly in some of those purple districts. If you don't want your city, your state looking like California, where you have deficits, where the classrooms are too big, where police aren't able to really do the jobs, where social safety nets, where we already typically don't have enough money to cover citizens, are being stretched even further to now cover illegal immigrants. If you don't want that, then you absolutely must vote Republican. That would be my strategy.
Oh, well, now I know.
Part of the reason that one factor in how we got to this point is actually the pressure and the concern within the administration about making good on some of those goals on immigration.
Well, they're adding to the arrest numbers right now. They've been talking about arrest at least 5 people. That's nowhere near the numbers that they promised, clearly. And I don't know who they're arresting if they are, in fact, people who do not have citizenship or otherwise, which was their promise.
In the weeks leading up to this, Stephen Miller was calling ICE officials and bringing in together ICE leadership and really, pressing them as well on making good on this goal of millions of deportations, including 1 million this year, which, ICE officials that I'm speaking to, people close to these operations, say that untenable at times. In fact, there's agents that have been redirected from their ongoing criminal investigations to routine deportations that are also feeling stretched thin and like they're being pulled away from their normal duties as well.
Like
So,
members of the military, the Marines right now are there. I wonder how that's going to play optically for Americans who obviously value our esteemed members of our armed forces, who are watching them be taken now and put in these situations. That in fact it?
It's absolutely. It's going to look like overkill. It's going to look like chaos. And it's going to look like a president who is yet again potentially circumventing the laws and the norms of our country. That's why I think it's so important that the governor filed a lawsuit, because he wants to press the question. Let's press the question.
Well, we'll see what the answer will be. Obviously, the priority will be to try to figure out how to stop what's happening right now in the streets. Everyone, please stand by. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to go back to our reporters who are on the ground in LA as police make arrests now of remaining protesters. Much more of breaking news coverage in just a moment.
Eva Longoria.
Oh, that's bleak. Oh, God.
On CNN.
We were the first music publisher pioneering music, right?
Mm-mm. Poor baby.
The publishing rights in the Middle East.
Everyone is passionate about the mission of Paparazzi.
The company is built by artists for artists.
We've had the opportunity to bring some of the best songwriters and producers from around the world to come to Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is a great place to build a business. It's exciting.
When you're ready to begin treatment for chronic lymphocytic leukemia, Calquence helps you do the fighting, and you can do the exploring. You can do the splashing, the sightseeing, and the playing.
We'll see what
Calquence is
happens.
oral targeted therapy for CLL. More patients begin with Calquence than any treatment of its kind, and Calquence is proven to work better than chemoimmunotherapy in patients with previously untreated CLL. Calquence can cause serious side effects which may lead to death. This includes serious infections, bleeding problems that may increase with blood thinners, decreased blood counts, new cancers to other organs including skin cancers, heart rhythm problems, and liver problems. Tell your doctor if you have flu-like symptoms, blood in stool or urine, fast or irregular heartbeat, dizziness, feeling faint, chest discomfort, shortness of breath, stomach pain, dark urine, or yellowing skin. These are not all the possible side effects. Use sun protection. Calquence may harm an unborn baby. Calquence helps you do
Yo,
the fight,
not an
and
unborn
you can
baby.
focus on the things you're loving. Ask your doctor if Calquence is right for you. I like things personalized, like my coffee. So when my doctor prescribed Vyvgart Hytrulo self-injection for my generalized myasthenia gravis, we personalized my treatment goals. Vyvgart Hytrulo can improve daily abilities and reduce muscle weakness.
It's my treatment, my way.
Vyvgart Hytrulo for Weekend Away Steve.
It's travel ready and can go where I go.
Self-injection.
I'm trying to get streamlined in the action major stream. Photo output. I'm trying to make a streamlined in the action major stream.
Oh, girl.
Photo output. I'm trying to make a streamlined in the action major stream.
Oh, girl.
Most common side effects include respiratory and urinary tract infections, headache, and injection site reactions.
My Vyvgart Hytrulo self-injection.
Reducing my symptoms.
That's treatment? My way. Ask your neurologist about Vyvgart Hytrulo.
Girl.
I'm a photographer and small business owner. Every day I use American technology and artificial intelligence to run my business and edit photos. American innovation is essential to small businesses like mine. That's why I'm proud the U.S. leads the world in developing open source AI solutions. This game-changing technology is making us smarter and more efficient. American innovation is supporting millions of jobs and powering our economy. Our leaders in Washington must protect our competitive edge.
It's officially summer reading season. Allow us at Warby Parker to suggest the perfect glasses and sunglasses for your literary pursuits. A dramatic romance? Yeah, sunglasses are essential. An international mystery? Aviator frames would go great. Or an impulse purchase from the airport? Try an oversized shape. Find your perfect pair, starting at $95 with prescription lenses. In stores at warbyparker.com.
Angola is a hidden channel, full of potential. We look forward to welcoming you back, time and time again. Now,
God, my fucking head hurts. Jesus, Lord.
There wasn't a moment in the 80s that wasn't super cool to be me. I kept who I was a secret for a really long time.
he was so private. It was challenging for him to do the documentary. It was challenging for him to do the documentary.
Death is so final. To get your message in at the last minute is incredible.
Pee-wee as himself, streaming exclusively on Max. This is CNN Breaking News.
Good evening, I'm Laura Coates. It's midnight on the East Coast, 9 p.m. on the West Coast. The protests over immigration raids continue for a fourth straight evening in LA. And moments ago, police announced the protesters who were still on the street will be under arrest. Over the last hour, we have seen police advance on the demonstrators to push them back and end the standoff. At times, officers have fired flashbangs and fired rubber bullets after protesters threw bottles and shot fireworks towards the officers. You can see some of the explosions that happened just a few moments ago. I want to go right back to CNN's Jason Carroll, who is live on the ground in downtown LA. Jason, police warned of arrest a few moments ago. Has that happened?
It's happening right now as we speak, Laura. You can zoom in right now. You can see one by one these demonstrators are walking up to the officers, turning around. They are being handcuffed with these zip ties, and they are being led away. We knew this was going to happen as soon as this white bus that you see here pulled up, this detention bus pulled up. Obviously, that's going to be used to take some of these protesters away. We've also noticed that some of the demonstrators who are out here started to write a jail support number on their arms. So once they are in custody, they have a number to call. But again, the police that were out here made the announcement. They said that anyone who was left here was going to be detained for failure to disperse. And then what happened after that, they boxed in, literally, you can see officers right here on all sides, on this side here, over here on this side here, some of the demonstrators back up in this corner over here that you see here, Laura. And some of the demonstrators at that point tried to leave, and the LAPD said no. That time has come, and that time has gone. Not only are they not allowing the demonstrators to leave, they're not allowing press to leave either. Laura. We are all boxed in this area together. They are telling everyone here that they are going to be detained for failing to disperse. So this is the end to what has been a very long day, a very long night of back and forth with some of these officers. I said even just a few hours ago there was going to be a tipping point where officers were not going to do this back and forth.
They phoned me up with the old school fools.
Come up to these officers, shout and said to you, a great deal of the officers trying to do the some more. Again. They moved in. The crowd started to. That's why the New York girlies be entertaining. Where we are at this hour. And the arrest being made. Dominicans like this. Dominican men like this. I said, well, what are we doing now? And why are you fucking me like this? I just, ooh, bitch. No, bitch. You talking about what you doing today? Healing. I'm about to soak in a hot bath, nigga. And so we're going to negotiate that. But it's me out the
Yeah. She got slayed by a Dominican bitch.
Such thing. Bitch, what do they put in these recipes for these Dominicans? Because the Dominican came over and warmed me out and he folded me up like an old school food thing, bitch.
Develops, but again, so far you can see from one of the demonstrators being read away. This is what you see one by one. Again, all of the demonstrators.
This again. And some more.
So we're going to see what happens again.
Again.
Right now, they're being arrested as promised.
Can you estimate about
this why the New York girlies be entertaining?
That the officers have boxed in? Are we talking about a couple dozen? Are we talking about much more?
What is up with these Dominicans like this?
The only thing that I can speak to is
Dominican men like this.
I've seen some people throwing fireworks.
I said, well, what are we doing now?
Outside this box.
And why are you fucking me like this?
And I think you heard even Aaron Burnett in earlier coverage
Just.
tonight. That's
ooh, bitch.
I'm done. My girl said, no, bitch, no.
The crowd. Now we're left with, again, a couple dozen protesters who are left. We've seen several, another one happening right now. We've seen several being detained, being arrested just within the past few minutes. And I think that's what we're going to see until what's left. Again, we're going to see what happens with the media that's left out here. We've asked the officers if we're allowed to go outside the room. We were told no uncertainty, simply need to stay where you are.
Jason Carroll, stand by. We're going to remind you of coverage here. I want to bring in CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller, along with retired NYPD Detective Sergeant Felipe Rodriguez. But let me ask you, first of all, about the tactics of police as usual. So they had moved the line periodically towards those who were left, and then boxing the bed, telling them they have to be arrested, and now they're being arrested.
What's up, Joey
Understand this tactic
Linton?
they've used is the right one?
No, it is correct. I mean, they used a great deal of restraint. We saw that there was a lot of times that people don't realize we have professional agitators out there. And what they want to do is they want to see police do the incorrect thing, to bring about lawsuits or just, incite further riots or further violence. At this point, they herded out the hardcore individuals, the ones that wanted to be there. And at the end, guess what? We go in as a team, with arrest teams. We're using flex clubs, and we control the situation. And now we assign arresting officers and, start processing the arrest.
John, Trump is deploying 2,000 more National Guard members to LA. Does law enforcement really need those additional resources, you think?
Well, they say they don't. Jimmy McDonald, who is probably the most experienced lawman in Southern California. Remember, he was a deputy chief in the LAPD. He was the chief of the Long Beach Police. He was the elected sheriff of Los Angeles County, and then he returned as chief of the LAPD. So there's nothing about this business that is new to him. And he said the LAPD and its county partners in Southern California handle the situation on the ground, including protecting the federal building. What this is appearing to be is a flex on the part of the Trump administration in Washington, saying we're going to ramp up these operations and we're going to do our own force protection of these federal buildings and federal agents. But having the military in the middle of this, even the National Guard, has actually maybe had the opposite effect of becoming a lightning rod to make the protests bigger.
Felipe, I'd love to hear your take on that as well. I mean, the infusion of the National Guard or military, does that help or hurt the ability of law enforcement on the ground in a very volatile situation to get it under control?
See, the infusion could bring about basically a lot of confusion. These officers of LAPD, they know how to do this job. They've been in numerous situations where they had to control, riot-like situations. Unless you have a strong, unified command, and now we're talking the point that we've stretched out all our resources, we really shouldn't be implementing the federal, side of kind of law enforcement with the National Guard.
And John, of course, we're seeing what's happening in LA. We're seeing things happening other places as well, because these confrontations between protests and immigration agents, they've been happening for literally weeks now, but now it's escalated even further. There have been new demonstrations at federal buildings as well across the country. What are your sources telling you about the situation across the country right now?
Well, what you're seeing is rolling protests, right? From LA to Dallas. There was one in New York with a small number of arrests at the federal building this afternoon, too. But, the question is, how does something get big, and how are these done today? The protests are organized by social media channels where they say, here's where to be, when to be there, and spread this across your social media channels so they can develop a crowd. But in the background of this, we've also seen social media messages and flyers and posters saying CNN? It's time to escalate.
Wait 1 second, John. Hold on. I want to. Jason, what's going on? I hear you. Am I seeing Jason Carroll being? What happened, Jason?
I'm being detained. Laura. I'm not being arrested. Correct, officers?
Did you hear what he told you?
No.
We're letting you leave. You can't come back.
Okay.
Then if you come back, then you go.
Okay.
Okay, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, officer.
Take care. You too. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
What happened, Jason?
You guys can still hear me. What happened was, yes.
I'm Chris with the New York Times. We got you guys. Later.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I can hear you still, Jason. What's happening?
So here's what happened, Laura. The officer, I was called over, and the officer told me to put my hands behind my back. I said, am I being arrested? And he said, you were being detained. Was walked out of the area. They took down my information.
Oh, I'm losing his ISP right now. I can't hear you, Jason. With John Miller, I'm just hearing from Jason Carroll just now. We had video just now of watching him with his hands behind his back. He was escorted by his elbows by, looks like 1 2 officers. He's walking out of the boxed-in area he was told at first he was being detained, and you could hear on camera the officer saying something to the effect of he had to leave the area and could not come back, and if he did, I believe they said that he would in fact be detained. Describe what you take from that.
So what they've done is they have given the 409 PC California warning to everybody there, demonstrators first. If you remain here, you're subject to arrest. Now they're sorting through people who are left who are not protesters, and in Jason's case, he identified himself. I'm Jason Carroll with CNN. Am I being detained? He said yes. What I think what the officer means is you're being detained for the purposes of you can't walk away from me back into the crowd. I'm going to walk you out of the perimeter, and then you will not be under arrest. But what they're trying to do is clear that box. Here's the rub. One of the things that's gotten hard in these demonstrations is you have anarchist groups and agitators who show up and say, well, I have a blog, so therefore I'm press. So therefore, even though I've been throwing bottles and screaming epithets, I'm not part of the protest. I want to be treated as media. So they sort through people one at a time. You know, it was probably less than pleasant for Jason, but at the end of the day, it was cool. They were polite. He was polite, and we're past that now.
Felipe, John makes an excellent point about the idea of those who might suggest that they are media in order to exercise the First Amendment basis and freedom of the press to remain in an area that would otherwise be excluded from. How much is this impacting the ability of law enforcement as they're trying to comb through who are the protesters and who are agitators and who needs to stay in the area?
It does become difficult. You see it more every day. Everybody swears that, you know, I have a TikTok channel or whatever, I'm an influencer, and they actually feel that they're legitimate press when they're not. You know, that they're basically voicing their opinion. So the officers do have to go through it and actually properly identify an individual before they let them go. The key thing is, you know what, we have to control that box. We have to make sure that those that need to be arrested are charged properly, and those that are actually the press are then let go. But it is a legitimate process, what they're doing.
Well, John, why weren't people, if they were warned that they could be arrested, and then they were boxed in, so now they can't leave? Is that normal to hear, that they're not able to?
Well, it is.
Oh, wait.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, John, go ahead. I'm watching it unfold as we're talking. I'm hearing Jason, I'm seeing Jason, but I'm not quite clear. I hear you, John. Go ahead.
Right. And if you see what's happening on the right-hand side of the screen, you know, you see the fireworks going off. It means that they had dwindled this crowd down from the core group of protesters to the secondary protesters to, you know, the last of the diehards who were the people who were taking them on and had been warned at each stop along the way, you know, that this is an unlawful assembly and you have to disperse so many times that at this point they're saying, okay, the game is over. We have warned you now for several miles outside of the courthouse to disperse, and you're still here. So you're now all in custody, and we're just going to sort through you one at a time. It's an interesting decision because you have two choices there. One is they're only there because you're still there, the police, and you are the two objects of each other's obsession. Sometimes the police make the decision, we're going to pack up and go, and then these people have nothing left to protest because they're far away from the target they started at. The other is, we've had enough, they've had enough warnings, and we're going to see them back tomorrow, so we're going to charge them.
Jason Carroll, I've got you on the line. Jason, what's happening right now? Where are you?
Well, I'm outside the perimeter, Laura. Again, I think you heard John Miller explain it, and I think he explained it best. You know, as I was walking over to the officer, tried to explain who I was, identified who I was with. I turned. He said, "I'd like you to turn around." I turned around. I had my hands behind my back. They did not put me in zip ties, but they did grab both of my hands as I was escorted over to the side. They said, "You are being detained while we lead you out of this area. You are not allowed to be in this area." So they took me over to the side. They took down my name. They asked me where I was from. You know, they get your basic information. And I said, "Am I being arrested?" He said, "No, you're not being arrested. You're being detained." And so there's that. As press, you know, these are some of the things that you know, take a lot of risks as press. This is low on that sort of scale of risks, but it is something that I wasn't expecting, simply because we've been out here all day. I've covered any number of protests, and normally there's the officers, the press realize that the press is there doing a job, so to speak. And again, this is what happened. It did not last long. Felt a little longer than what it was, but there you have it. But we are now outside the perimeter, and the protest, at least at this point, is being concluded, getting back to the reason why we're here and reporting why we were here. They're making a number of arrests of those demonstrators who were left, about a couple of dozen or so. They had put out the announcement that anyone who was still here would be under arrest for failure to disperse. And so at that point, that's when they took those demonstrators into custody after they had sort of boxed them in. But at one point, we did ask, hey, can we get outside this perimeter so we can get a better shot? And told that we were not allowed to leave. And so at that point, as I told you before it happened, we would sort of play it by ear, and that's how we're doing.
Jason, Carol, please stand by. Thank you, John, Felipe, as well. I appreciate it. I want to bring back our panel. We've got Karen Finney and Samantha Singleton, and joining us at the table, Shen Wu, former federal prosecutor and defense attorney as well. I have to say that maybe remember when our colleague back during the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin protest in Minneapolis was in fact detained and taken away, and the idea of the rub of the police trying to do their job and press trying to do their job as well to be the eyes and ears. Let me begin with you here, Shan, because one big question people might have is, well, hold on, I thought the press are able to be anywhere the story is. It is lawful or not for the police to remove even media from an area that they have tried to shut down.
It's basically a law. They're giving notice to them. If this is more of a long-term situation, the press might bring a lawsuit to valve access to the area. But in that situation, it seems fine. I'm not familiar with the particular California provision that John was citing to, but I mean, under a normal Fourth Amendment analysis, I'm not sure what the cause was for detaining. Really, they're just escorting them out of the area.
Let's talk about the law. Some lawsuits here. Governor Gavin Newsom, as you well know, has brought a lawsuit. Now, obviously, the priority immediately is going to be dealing with what's happening right now in the streets and trying to quell that. But the idea that there is a lawsuit right now from the governor because of the president's decision to introduce non-law enforcement and said military National Guard, what is your take on that viability?
It's a very strong one. Because what the president's administration has done is they, contrary to his sort of garbled invective sometimes, he's not actually invoking the Insurrection Act. They're trying to proceed under 10 U.S.C. 12406, which has very specific conditions for when you can federalize the National Guard. Those conditions are you have to have an invasion, rebellion, or the president can't carry out the regular functions. For example, Nixon invoked this provision when there's a mail carrier strike, couldn't deliver the mail. Certainly, on its face, none of that seems to have been met here. I mean, judging from what we just saw, it's pretty orderly. Law enforcement's controlling it.
But the president would argue, I'm sure, that the federal function was trying to exercise ICE's own rules.
Right. That's exactly what they're arguing. So I think, though, when the evidence is played out and they're going to seek an injunction against the president's order here, I think it's looking pretty good. The governor of California has also argued that this is a violation of the 10th Amendment, the state sovereignty aspect. So you got those two pieces there. So,
in a way, Trump and Newsom have readied themselves for fighting one another. And this is probably the cherry on top.
Sure, but I'm old enough to remember when Republicans were for states' rights, and they were, actually believed that the states should, that they have their own rights, and we shouldn't be, telling them what to do. Also, corporations, but apparently are private institutions.
That's not Trump's America. No, look, I think this is an interesting moment for Gavin Newsom. We all know he intends to run for president in 2028. Does this hurt his chances? No, I think not. I mean, particularly given, let's just say, God willing, it stays, peaceful, and we don't see any harm come to anyone, any more harm. I think he was able to, he's standing up to the president, which I think was the right thing to do, particularly because it's a reminder that this president keeps running afoul of the law. He keeps trying to push that limit, and he's lost quite frequently in court. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out, particularly given that they were going after day laborers at Home Depot. This wasn't exactly an invasion across the border. But certainly, I think, so from Newsom's perspective, if he looks strong, which I think he does in this moment, and certainly the LAPD was able to continue and handle the situation, I think that actually looks good, both for the governor, for the Los Angeles Police Department, for the governing bodies of LA County. Do you agree?
I think there's a clear political distinction to be made to
Stop it. You think I'm kidding? Knock it off. Stop fucking filming, because he's gonna hurt somebody. Then I'm gonna fucking knock his head off. Get the fuck away from me. See you there. Shoot the hand. Shoot the hips. Hands will follow. That's where the power comes from. Right there. Hands inside. Hands inside. Shoot the hips. Hands will follow. Keep that butt of the bat in. Butt of the bat in. See that? Triangle. Triangle. Contact. Watch it.
American people. I mean, Trump said he likes Gavin Newsom, but his politics are pretty bad. I would agree with that. I mean, Karen clearly is the expert on Democratic politics. I would follow her lead. But I think if you're making the argument to the American people, not just looking at this, but California in general, an influx of people, migrants illegally entering the state. A lot of Americans have left the state. A lot of businesses have left the state. Tesla, Chevron, Oracle, a number of others are fleeing California because they're not happy about the politics in general, taxes, crime, immigration.
There's a whole host of issues going on in California, not just the politics, so to speak.
Listening to Karen.
You said the politics.
So it's a litany of things in California that I think Republicans can point to draw a clear distinction to say, do you want this type of governance? I think most Americans would probably say no. I would be surprised if Democrats would rally behind someone like this when compared to someone like a Pritzker. I think there's two dichotomies here where you can draw a clear contrast. If you're Democrats, to say, well, this guy may not be able to make a strong case to middle America. Someone like Pritzker may be able to. If we choose Newsom, we're literally giving Republicans the opportunity to look at every negative thing they dislike about California, make that case to the American people, and make 2028 look really difficult.
What do you think? Pritzker versus Newsom, if that's the conversation. Again, I think a lot is going to depend on where we are in 2 more years. I mean, what are people going to want after 2 more years of this? I don't know, seeing chaos in the streets, seeing our economy being tanked by this crazy tariff up and down of the economy, utilizing American service members on American streets against American citizens. Let's see where we are in a couple of years.
On that point, there are laws in this country. We do not want to have the military be used on domestic soil. The reality, though, is that there's a lot of untested areas of the law because it hasn't been tried in the same degree. We're right recently. The Insurrection Act is one example of an exception, but when you look at the legal issues at play here, whether it's the president being able to invoke the Insurrection Act or not, what is your take in terms of how these lawsuits might proceed? This certainly is not going to be the end of it.
It's not, and whichever way the injunction comes out, it'll continue to appeal. I think the Trump administration is probably hoping it gets the Supreme Court, as usual, on its emergency shadow docket.
People want to talk about national security, which is a differential area for them.
Yeah, exactly, which they're trying to sort of shoehorn everything underneath that here. And I think, some commentators have suggested that this specific invocation of the statute versus jumping right to the Insurrection Act is kind of like a testing the waters. It's a warm-up. And there's a double meaning to it, which is they can say, if the protest got worse, they could say, hey, we tried this more modest measure and it didn't work. So now this gives us more basis to move the Insurrection Act. So there's no question they're looking towards that. And again, I don't know if the president understands these distinctions, but the brain trust behind it does. And you can see the strategy, the tactics of what they're doing.
Right, the strategy at play as we watch it unfold in LA and also places like Dallas and beyond. Thank you so much, everyone, for your insight. Still ahead, President Trump sending Marines and even more National Guard troops to LA. Is the city prepared for that kind of troop presence? Insight from our military experts next. I am visiting my town, the town of Longoria. Yes. Oh, that's nice. Es mi favorito.
Oh.
Everyone's here for me. She doesn't care, but she was protect. Oh, and celery. Forgot. I put celery in my very fresh and crispy celery. In my tuna salad.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
That's normal, actually. Never mind.
So let me say that. Being queer as a politic, just like I said, is me feeling that heteronormativity and being cisgender are not the default and are not the superior norms. I have that as a politic, right? Queer politics often seek to dismantle systems of power and privilege that disadvantage LGBT folks. Duh. advocating for, we're usually advocating for social justice, equality, and liberation for all of the gender non-conforming identities. Like, um,
Hey, I haven't talked to you in ages. You doing the marathon this weekend? Hey, Rocco. It's me. I had the worst food poisoning last night. Totally ditched this guy I just met.
Young lady, you better move. You know you gotta move. You gotta move. You gotta move. You in my spot. You in my spot.
That is all twist on everything that's in the sexual sense.
Like, why would you take my spot? Hmm?
In the
Why would you
sexual
take my
sense,
spot?
can broadly refer to any
Hmm?
sexual orientation that is outside of
Hmm.
heterosexual. Okay? There's some nuance in there for me, but that's in general.
Why you took my spot?
That can include lesbians, gays, bisexuals, pansexuals,
Why you took my
asexuals.
spot, big girl?
Some people find that controversial,
Hmm?
but that's because they don't understand that asexuals kind of have a range. Some of there's like a range. Some of them is like I'm just asexual and don't feel it at all, and some of them I just don't feel it as much as y'all. It's ranges, ranges of asexual. And that's
Can you get off me, please?
sexual identity,
Get
or just
off.
any other non-heterosexual
Why you?
attractions. Okay. It kind of functions as that umbrella term for like sexual minorities. Of course, we are acknowledging the diversity of sexual experience behind gay and straight. Everybody think everything's black and white. You either gay or you straight. It's instead of it being kind of like fluid for some people. What do you think about the fact that heterosexuality was invented along with homosexuality? What do you mean by invented? You talk about just the word or um, any type of sexuality? I don't think sexuality was invented. I just think that that is the um, nature of any mammal or sex having thing. I just think that's natural. But creating as an identity, um, I just think humans categorize things, and so they're gonna name something what it is. We like to categorize things. It makes things simple. I think the problem comes in when we try to stick to these rigid rules around those categories when they're something we when we become resistant to um, adjusting or adding, expanding and adding and making more categories and nuancing one category. When we become resistant to that, that's when it becomes a problem because we try to fit people in these boxes and it doesn't work for people who are outside of those boxes. And so that's what I think about it. I think we are trying to classify people, but I think that's normal. That's like what we do to animals. But the problem with animals and people, the problem with people that we don't have with animals is that when we see new things, when we see new heterosexuality wasn't the word, the category was invented during that time, but the actual what we're describing was not invented during that time. It's just normal sex, but the word, sure. The issue with animals, when we find new animals, we just categorize them differently. Oh, we found a new frog in the Amazon. Let's add this new species to the collection of other frogs. When we find, and when we find, like, let's say ants, we find ants that do something that there's an ant that fucking shoots poison out of its face and to hit people and acid or something. And then there's an ant that does something else. You know how many different types of damn ants everywhere is there? Is in our world. It's tons of ants, but we don't
politicize ants. We just say, oh, well, it's a new kind of ant. But with people, because of religion and culture and social norms, we make it turns into this negative thing, this kind of socio-political thing where you have to know there's only two genders instead of it being nuanced as we are more open to when it comes to animals, which is kind of surprising. So, what there's tons of you kind of funk queer as a sexual identity, a sexual orientation. It kind of functions as kind of like an umbrella term, of course. Some individuals use queer to express more complexity in their sexual attraction that may not fit neatly in the labels of heterosexuality, the labels of homosexuality, the labels of the labels of the labels that we're categorizing them in. Prior to the late 19th century, there were no distinct categories for sexual orientation, such as heterosexual and homosexual. People engage in sexual activities and form relationships without labels. That is a lie. It was other labels used to describe heterosexual and homosexuals, but they labeled it. If you go back to the Mesopotamia, they talked about sexuality it may not be labeled heterosexual or homosexual, but they had another label for it. You got to understand that language is a ever evolving entity. So if you're talking about a definitive time when that particular label became popular, sure. But if we're talking about, there's different words. In the 19th century, we weren't called African American, but we existed. But it doesn't really, I don't know what, I would ask why are you offering that? I would ask, why are you offering that distinction? Why is pointing out that heterosexual and homosexual became popular in the 19th century? Why is that important to you to add to this conversation? That's what I would want to know. Yeah, I disagree with that. Yeah, African American 70s, 80s.
What you doing, big girl? What you doing?
Yeah, I think some things are just categories. I think some things are, we label things just like, it's like saying, oh, male and female didn't become popular till this time. But the idea of what a male and female is has been around. They may not have used that language, but it's been around and it's not connected to capitalism. Now, when we start to get in capitalistic cultures that the 19th century really, really boosted up even more, then to keep up that system, we started enacting these rules about what a female is, what a heterosexual is, what a black is, what a white is, all these labels start to get a more capitalistic definition.
You okay?
But they've been around.
Said we should talk about.
It's almost like you're implying that everything started in the 1900s, in the 19th century, not 1900, 19th century, and I just don't agree with that. It just was called something else. It was just called something else.
So, Mr. Kress said you might be able to help me out with something. Well, not me, so that's clear. It's not me you're going to be helping. And I want it understood that I am not involved. just a bystander doing a favor. And this is not an offer of employment so
So,
much as an opportunity. And, well, anyway, that's just getting a bit technical, but the point is, sometimes our
yeah,
fair and
I
legal
don't agree with
justice
that at all.
system makes mistakes. And this is one such
They identified as something.
experience.
It just may not have been called homosexual. They might not have used that language, but there was something they used to describe somebody a man who was attracted to a man and not attracted to women. There was language that was used around that. We saw it's in multiple writings and books. It exists.
Accused of espionage along with everything else?
Okay.
You don't remember? Well, lucky you.
The language changes, but the idea does not.
Man, brilliant at everything he does, yada yada yada, makes you want to puke. He's a goddamn traitor.
So,
He's a rat, but he pays.
what I wanted to ask y'all is, what do y'all consider queer sex?
Money talks, and he's going to walk. So, we got a few things to get ready, all pretty straightforward. Do them one at a time, but any way you like. Standard op for a gov fact breakout, if you know what I mean. Rad. All right, first thing's a plane. Then we got a bus, and then, well, two things. We got the inmate transfer schedule and Rashkovsky's car. More on that later. Let me show you. We need a plane to get the professor out of the country. It's currently being used to traffic drugs by
Give me some examples,
gang, the Vagos.
Jay.
The bus. Need a standard Bolingbrook transport vehicle. The least traffic is on the route from Toledo Bay. All right, that's where you're going to be able to get a hold of one. You can get a hard copy of the inmate transit schedule at the LSPD's Mission Row station. Go in unarmed, play it cool. You might not have a problem. That's a two-person job, max. The other two-hander is our guy's prize Casco. We believe it's about to be shipped to Korea by a luxury car theft ring. Okay. Mr. Kress said you guys are at least semi-competent, so, well...
Me being a trans femme, anybody who has sex with me is having queer sex. Anything outside of sex for a reproductive purpose is queer to me. So jacking off is queer to you? Masturbating? Okay. Anything that's not definitely gay sex or straight sex. Give me some examples, Jay. Other than you being trans female. And that means everybody who could hook up with you is having queer sex. Everybody. Interesting. So, yeah, I think I'm similar to y'all. I wouldn't consider masturbating queer sex. I wouldn't consider that, but I consider it's definitely not based in reproduction. But I consider anything that's kind of like out of the norm. I think for example, so if a cisgender man and a cisgender woman have sex, that is just queer sex. I mean, that is just heterosexual sex. But I don't think if a lesbian and a gay man came together to experiment with each other, I think that's queer sex, even though the body parts is dick and pussy. I consider them still having queer sex. Like a lesbian and a gay boy just say, oh, we in the mood, we want to do it, let's see how it goes. And they just do it, I consider that queer sex. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Jay. I'm sitting here pondering on who could I sleep with that it wouldn't be queer sex? Nobody. I feel like because I'm a queer-bodied woman, yeah, I think I agree. I didn't think about it like that, but I'm trying to. While reading that, it kind of was like everybody, but then I'm trying to think of who could I sleep with as a trans femme that I would consider it not queer. Nobody. Nobody. As a queer-bodied woman, no. Because if I'm with a cisgender man, he's going to engage with my penis. That's queer. I wouldn't necessarily call it gay sex or bi-sex, but I would call it queer sex for sure. So, and if I dated a woman, like a cisgender woman, if we're having sex because of my visual, even though it's penis and pussy, because of my visual, yeah, I think that it is still queer. This reminds me of that conversation, Nidhi and Maddie. This is inspired by that conversation. This is inspired by that conversation. Maddie posted the video on her timeline, and in her caption, she separated queer identity from sexuality or something. Like, she didn't put them together, queer and sexuality. She said queer is an identity, but not a sexuality. And I disagree with that. I don't agree with that. I think queer can be a sexuality and also can be an identity. And that's why I'm talking about it on a political level and on a sexual level and identity level. I think that it can play a part. I think that you can be queer sexually and queer as an identity. I know some heterosexual people in my life who I think are queer as fuck. There's a girl, she's Benicia, she's been on our show multiple times. I've seen her, Benicia J from She with King J. I think J is not sexually queer, but I think that she is, yes. I think that she is, she's queer though. I think she's really queer in her identity, but I don't think she's sexually queer. Because her politics are queer. Yeah, I think that, that's how I see her. She's in the playlist, How Her Retreat. She's in the video with, when we talk about this, she's in the video with Aria. You can go back and check it out. Yeah, I think she's queer. I agree. I think Maddie was saying that aesthetic doesn't make the attraction gay. I don't agree, but I understand the perspective. But also, I think the problem with Maddie and Angie, I don't think either one of them have the things to talk about it. But I also, just in regards to what you said, sexuality is a lot of things. There's a lot of layers and a lot of steps. So, okay, so if I see, I'm a quote unquote straight man, and I see a trans woman, and I'm attracted to her. I don't know she's trans, but regardless of whether I know she's trans, that's a trans. You see what I'm saying? Like, regardless if it's kind of like somebody saying, well, I don't know. She's trans. Regardless if you know it or not, she's trans. So after you're attracted to her, you can't say that you've never been attracted to a trans person because she's trans. Well, I thought she was a woman. No, regardless of what you thought, I'm trans. So now you have come into the realm of being attracted to me. Seriously. Like, that's just what it is. It's like, it's no going back to this. You can never go back and say, oh, I've never been attracted to a trans person. Yes, you have. You have. Whether you thought I was
this and da 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 da, blah blah blah, whatever. This is how I look. Like, like even it kind of goes back to that always that statement that people say about, oh my God, you don't even look trans, but I am trans. So how for social justice, equality, and liberation for all of the gender nonconforming identities, right? Um, or sexuality.
You all right, big girl? You feeling all right? Who the fuck is Vogue Peach? I don't know what the fuck Vogue Peach is.
Is it queer? If she has a vagina, and then that comes into people's how queer people consider that depends on how valid they consider the pussy. Like this. So if I think that your pussy is just a inside out dick that done been chopped and screwed into a pussy, that ain't no real pussy. That's still a dick, just turned inside out. That's still a dick. So him fucking with you is still him fucking a dick, a mutilated dick. Then I have made these rules around body parts, trans people's body parts, to still consider him gay. Man, that's still a man. So now I have made these rules. Not me, but you know what I mean. Or now, flip side, if she has a penis and you choose to engage with her.
EasyCater is the nationwide tech platform for ordering food for your workplace. Find your favorite local restaurants, place your order, and provide your team with the resources they need, like tacos. Get started at easycater.com.
Fairgrounds, OTB, and casinos now have exciting new promotions and more ways to win big every day. To learn about our new promotions, visit fairgroundsracecourse.com.
Do what you can in regards to like stick your penis in her booty, like you would a cisgender woman. You don't do anything with the penis, but you're so attracted to her, and you respect her womanhood. But let me, if you're listening, make sure you bang thumbs up. Let me do what I can do with her. I don't want to suck no penis. I don't want no penis in me. I don't want to engage with no penis. But I have anal sex with cisgender women, so this is what you can do. So we'll do the anal sex part. Is that queer? This is a negotiation. This is a sexual negotiation. How far you want to go? If the basis of your choice is your heteronormative actions, is that queer? I'm not saying. I'm just asking the question. I don't think that there's no right or wrong answer. I just think that it's cool to discuss deeply. That's queer straight sex. But do you think the same thing with the neo vagina, Jay? Ooh, it's begging queer. I think so. I don't think it's necessarily gay, but I think it's queer. I think so. Begging is very queer. I don't think it's the same with the vagina. Why? Why is the vagina the definitive line and the penis is not? Why is that the definitive line for you for queerness? Begging and anal seems queer even amongst heterosexuals. Yeah, I think it's queer now. I don't know anal. Why? Okay, then Brandon, another question. Why is anal queer? Because vagina is a whole and anal is a whole. Why is it for you that's your definitive line? Anal is queer. Even in heterosexual, but just vagina is not. Why is the anus all of a sudden a more queerer whole than the vagina whole? It's like if you're
Bitch.
why is that that
What a
anal
hoe.
hole, the queer hole. I feel like he's going off what he sees. But what if you a queer? What if you're a trans woman with a penis, but he doesn't actually see your penis, but he knows you're trans, but he doesn't actually see your penis. If you're going off the way you see it, that's still queer. He's fucking your ass. Is it only queer if they have a prostate? We get see how it gets strange? Based on the rules the straight set, anal is queer. Do they set the rules? Do you let them set the rules for your taste? Because of them, the gays have to do that because they have no other options. Really? You think that? Because of them, the gays have to do that. When you say that, define what that is. They have to do anal? I think they have to. I don't think that's because the straights. I think that's because it's a hole in the dick. In a tight hole. I don't think the straights make the gays do anal. I think that is a penis, and the penis likes to pump in tight holes. Is it only queer if you have something? What do you think of all the identity categories that have popped up? Does this cause lack of cohesion in queer politics? No. I think that people's lack of education and openness to understanding new concepts and ideas and categories um, causes lack of cohesion. I don't think us getting new words. I think that's where me and your not necessarily debate, but what you talk about, like when you talk about the 1900s. I think what you consider popping up is just new language. I don't think new language popping up around things giving you a deeper understanding of things, like non-binary. In the recent 5, 10 years, we've been hearing non-binary as an identity, and it's become popular to talk about. But non-binary people have been around forever. We just called them something else. We called them something else. We didn't have the deep language to talk about it. Androgynous. When we think about Boy George, when we think about, so many different non-binary people, we just didn't have the language for it. And so I don't think that it just popped up. It's here. We're just evolving, and we're evolving our language to explain things deeply. And people resist explanation or resist accepting new information. They resist it because of religion, because of laziness. I think some people are just intellectually lazy. I think that some people are literally just not. Oh, this is just getting too much. I think that people are like that. The emphasis on individual identity and the fluidity of category can lead to a focus on personal liberation and self-expression, which can be commodified and marketed within a capitalist system. I think you're obsessed with capitalism. While capitalism is important, I don't think that that is something that is necessarily capitalism bad. But personal liberation and self-expression, capitalism is the bad part, not the actual identity or fluidity. I don't think that that's a problem. Personal liberation, I don't think that that's a problem. In a capitalist system, many things can be commodified. The housewife, which is a label, um, anything, any need that you can have that somebody can exploit and sell to you can be in a capitalist system, can be something. I don't think it's necessarily being a housewife is a problem or identifying as a housewife is a problem. But once you identify as a housewife, they're going to start commodifying dishwasher liquid to you. Dishwashers and refrigerators and vacuums and da 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 da. Now it's like, ooh, we have this demographic of housewives, so let's sell them something because they're housewives. Jay says, I guess if he doesn't see the penis, it's not queer for him. But me over here with the leg over lamb, still queer. Leg over lamb? With the leg of lamb? What do you mean? What does that mean? Is it a joke that I didn't get? For me over here with the leg of lamb, does that mean I have a big penis? Is that what you mean? It does a big penis. But still a maybe, because him knowing it's there still blurs the line. I agree. I think just knowing it's there is enough to be taboo. And to be an edge, to give it like an edge of, ooh, this is hot. I'm doing something out of my norm. And I think people underestimate the attraction, the attraction for a taboo thing. Arrogance equals trade, not seeing the meat and knowing it's there, definitely be trying. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the room. They just limit their engagement with it and get it minimum gay in their heads. I think that negotiation is how many people navigate queerness and the fluidity of sexuality. I think we're talking about it way over here in the deep end of queer sex, but when we even think about dudes in heterosexual sex that accept getting their ass ate either as gay or, ooh, it's just me being freaky. I think that even the fluidity between those things, who creates the line? Me and Jay is talking about the line of seeing and not seeing penis, but they are talking about the line of tongue and ass and no tongue.
Looks like you're almost at the quarry. Merriweather have rented the place to do some tests on the insurgent LAPVs. It's a live fire test, so expect resistance once you engage. Try and hold off engaging for as long as possible, though. Your best chance of success will come if you retain control of the situation. These vehicles are fast, armored, all-terrain. Perfect for a militarized police-sized military.
You see what I'm saying? There's always a line. And the fact that we are not debating, but even discussing where your line is. Like, what's the line? And how people can be honest and not be honest. All the ills of war is our roots in intellectual deficiency and the inability to understand nuance and context. Absolutely.
almost at the quarry. Merriweather have rented the place to do some tests on the insurgent LAPVs. It's a live fire test, so expect resistance once you engage. Try and hold off engaging for as long as possible, though. Your best chance of success will come if you retain control of the situation. These vehicles are fast, armored, all-terrain. Perfect for a militarized police, police-sized military, and concerned civilian interests. Whether you're driving this into enemy forces in a theater of war or a crowd of protesters in downtown LS. Insurgent LAPV Mark III integrity test on my signal, and fire! Get the insurgents and get out of there.
Oh, yes. Sure do. It's bedtime, bitch.
I tell you, we only needed one of these. Other one's a spare. You're gonna be going in the one without a gun. Don't want to draw attention. Pull the electrics, strip the plating, EMP will go in. Merryweather won't notice a difference. You guys won't need armor in there, will you? Right, now get going. Let's wrap this up.
All right. Well, what's wrong with you?
And see, yo, it's been longer than that. The men hiding their sexuality.
All right, y'all. I'm going to bed. I'm tired.
The urban
And I gotta get up early
language of
tomorrow. Ugh, lame.
It may be new. I know J.L. King came out with a book in '04, but we've been talking about DL for shit since the '90s, '80s and '90s. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out, y'all.
But it's been a
I will see y'all tomorrow, same time, same place.
men and women.
Have a great Tuesday.
DL.
And I will see y'all later.
There's a bunch of fucking
Good
DL
night.